Hi everybody, it's Jessica Kaksu here. So this is a little different video to end 2024 off with a big bang, no pun intended, because I thought I'd share my tips and advice on how to make your own Gacha Magical Girl series. Now this is just my own preference, so if you disagree with some things that I say, that's fine. Just take my opinion with a grain of salt. So I'm basically going to be going over most of the things you need to know, and I'll even add my own little notes on different things as well, in case you are confused as to what my opinion's saying. So with that in mind, let's get started. Getting started. So obviously for a magical girl anime, you're going to need to start with a main theme. You could even base it off a brand you love, like how I did for Pokemon Legend Precure being based off Pokemon. That's one example for you. It can be based off anything, like a personal experience you've had, or even getting inspired from other places. But I am going to give you a big forewarn up front.
Don't take everything from Smile!
It's really annoying in my eyes. Now granted, we've all taken something from Smile. The plot, the transformation device, the music. Even I've done it admittedly. But it's just not on if you're just basically making Smile with a new coat of paint. So personally, I would try and only stick to character inspiration rather than take everything from Smile. Inspiration is better than blatantly copying, in my opinion. Character archetypes. Now I've got to bring this up for a very good reason, because most people actually take their Cure's personalities from the Smile Precure cast or somewhere else in the Precure timeline. So I thought I'd tell you guys each archetype and try and tell you what you can do to take inspiration from them, but rather than just completely taking it, try and make it your own instead. So I'll just give you some tips and ideas. So let's start off with Pink. Just a reminder, they mainly act like the Smile Precure cast, so keep that in mind. So the Pinks more stereotypically act like Emily, aka Miyuki. They're usually very happy-go-lucky, very smiley, tend to be late for school, and are usually just very optimistic about things. For better or for worse, I suppose. But one thing you can do to take inspiration from this is have them be a bit of an optimistic person, but rather than them always being late for school, try and actually make them a bit more attentive, if that's even a word. Make them more punctuative. Make them more on time for their school degrees and everything else. Another key thing could be good leadership. Give them a good leadership skill. That could help as well. Next, we have the Reds and Oranges, who typically act more like Akane, aka Kelsey. They're very athletic and tend to be on the soccer/football team of the school they are part of. Don't always make them sporty, you can make them very supportive as well. I get it may be a very big thing for Red to be associated with, because Red can be associated with the virtue of passion, and passion can mean effort. That I fully understand. But don't just take everything from a Kelsey, okay? It's just not on. Instead, try and make him like the brute force of the team, the main source of the group's power in case they might be in a bit of a struggle or otherwise. Next up are the Yellows, which mainly take from Lily, aka Yayoi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. Typically, the Yellows are very shy, timid, and don't think they're good at drawing when in fact they really are. You don't have to make them shy and timid. You can try and make them more open up towards other people as time goes on. Character development! Don't you just love it? Anyhow, always try and make sure that they're very supportive of the rest of the team. They could be like the cheerleader of the group if you wanted, but don't make them like an absolute blob of a person, because that's too stereotypical. Try and stand out from other people. Next up are the Greens, who mainly take from Now, aka April. Just like the Oranges, they tend to be very athletic, but they're also typically family caretakers, and typically their family has too many siblings to count, so much so that they can barely handle it. You don't have to make them a big family caretaker. You can make them like a solo person, like someone who lives on their own and does independent things with friends or even other family members whom they don't live with. And they don't have to be as athletic as the Oranges, but they can also serve as team morale for the whole group. So try and stick with a theme that doesn't stereotypically clash with other character types. Next up, there are the Blues, who mainly take from Reika, aka Chloe. Stereotypically, they are part of the student council and are typically the brains of the group, mainly getting A's in their grades almost all the time. You don't have to make them that clever, or even be part of something, I don't know, like archery practice. Try and make them stand out, but you can still make them the brains of the team if you need to. I mean, look at Cure Ideals, he acts more like a pink than a blue, doesn't he? That's just one example I can give you at the moment. So try and stick out and try not to make them as stereotypical as being part of the student council. Next are the Purples, who actually don't take from a Smile Precure person, because there isn't a Purple Cure in Smile Precure, but instead mainly take from Cure Moonlights from what I could gather. They're typically very isolated, very serious, and don't tend to show up lore-wise until way later on down in the series. Now, granted, you can do some of these things, but just making them like a stereotypical Purple Cure just doesn't sound right. Try and make them interact more with the Cures. They'll give them a bit more of a relationship with the new mid-season, aka Sixth Ranger. And then lastly, there are any other colours of Cures, such as brown, black, grey, and white. The black and whites typically tend to act more like the orange and blue ones, sometimes even purple in certain cases. But sometimes they may have their own unique personality, and that's really what makes them stand out from the rest of the group. So try and think of a unique personality that's not like any of the stereotypes I've mentioned previously. You can take inspiration from them, sure, just don't make them identical. Plot! Now we're finally getting into the main story of the series. Now again, they mainly take from Smile, so try and stand out. But typically, it mainly follows Smile's story. A queen seals a great evil away, the great evil's henchmen try to revive that said great evil, and the queen then sends a psychic to go find the cures to try and stop and prevent this from happening. You can make it different to some degree. It could be because of a different event rather than a completely big great evil trying to take over the world or whatever else. Just don't take everything from Smile and try and aim for something that's unique to you. Just don't make it the exact same thing. Character designs. Now this is the fun bit. Then you get to design your characters and show what they look like. Typically the Cures always follow a very specific colour scheme when it comes to the Cure colours. The most stereotypical ones I've seen are either pink, blue and yellow, or pink, orange, yellow, green and blue, sometimes with a purple on the end. On both cases, mind you. But you don't have to make them all the exact same. You can make them completely different colours. Look at Hiragaru Sky, for example. They had blue, white, orange, pink, and purple. So they don't have to be the exact same colour scheme for every single series that you make. Look at PLPC. I've got blue, orange, grey, yellow, and green. No purple Cure in sight. Now as for the Cure outfits, they typically fall into one of two categories. Uniform or non-uniform. For the non-uniforms, they basically all look different from one another, but yet at the same time they have to look united. PLBC follows this rule. And then the other side is uniform, where very little is changed from the actual outfit. Love Blast Girls follows this profusely. So you can choose whichever style you like, but make sure you actually choose very different colours than what you stereotypically see. You can if you want to. I mean, I'm not judging you. Just make sure it's something that stands out to you. Villains. Now, the villains, typically colour-wise, are very dark in colour, such as black and red. Look at the Malice Trio. Both iterations by Jew. However, you can make them any colour you like. As for their goal, it's merely the exact opposite of what the heroes are trying to do. So for example, if it was a rainbow group trying to bring colour to the world, then the villains would be trying to take that colour away for monochrome, like a big tug-of-war situation. As for the personalities, try and make them stand out from every other villain you typically see. So they don't have to be absolutely psychotic, they can have a little sense of humour inside of them, like Demonato for example. He might actually be dark on the outside, but inside he's actually got a pretty hearty sense of humour, just like me. So I actually kind of based him around my own experience. Transformations. Now this is the big one. Now typically transformations always look Sailor Moon-like. I mean, look at Precure for example. You can make them however you wish. If you are stuck on how you can make a magical girl transformation, you can go look at other people's tutorials. Two I recommend are from Evno, the creator of Crystal Guardians, and Mr. Dragon 14, my best online friend. She has changed a little in the way she makes her transformations, but she ain't in the mood to make a re-upload. Just watch this get absolutely blown out of the water. And remember, everybody, just like myself, always has a starting point. Practice makes perfect. You'll get the hang of actually making transformations the longer you do them. I've been making them since about 2021, for example, when I joined the Gacha community. Fight scenes and finishes / attacks. Now this one's a bit straightforward. For the fight scenes, make sure you look at other places for inspiration. For example, you might look at Power Rangers, Dragon Ball, or even Precure fight scenes if you want to. Just don't make it look too choppy, otherwise it won't look as appealing to the audience. As for the finishes / attacks, that's fairly easy. It's similar to transformations, just minus the whole glittery body and effects and such. If you're stuck, why don't you go look at other people's attacks for inspiration? Just don't take everything, that's all I ask. Logo, opening, and ending. Now this one's another straightforward one. For the logo, you can actually picture it in your head and you can draw it out on a drawing platform. For example, I use Ibis Paint X. As for the opening and endings, we typically use a song that came from an anime of some kind. Anything that's Japanese or Korean, for the most part. Something that isn't English, but it can be an English song if you want to. You just gotta make sure it's anime sounding. I mean, Magical Girl Anime is an anime for a reason. If you're stuck on what song you want to choose, I've actually compiled 2 playlists of every single opening and ending song that I have heard from every single Magical Girl anime series I have seen, including the likes of Iris Spectrum, Love Blast Girls, and otherwise. So in case you're absolutely confused on which song you really want to choose, then go check out my playlists, which I will link in the description. I admit I'm still working on the ending one though. There's more opening tracks than there are ending tracks. There's literally over 100 tracks that people have chosen for their openings to their series. Like, wow. Lore inclusion. Okay, now this one is an optional one, so you don't have to include it if you don't want to, but it can make your series a lot more grand in how it is set out. You can add lore to your series, like a backstory on how the Cures get their powers, for example. Like in Legend of the Guardians / Legend of the Amora, they both have the same sort of lore. Makes sense though, because LTG is a AU of LTA. AU meaning alternate universe, in case you are living under a rock on that term. Episode length. Now typically an episode of Precure lasts about 22 minutes, but you can make it longer or shorter if you want to. Just don't make it too short or it won't feel like a Precure episode at all. In my case, I split up my episodes into 10 different scenes. Scene 1 and Scene 2 are usually the Cures hanging out together, and sometimes even an occasional bit of info dump. It just depends on what the plot brings to it. Scene 3 is the first of the 2 villain scenes, but you can just make 1 villain scene if you wish. Scene 4 and 5 are usually the rise of the problem and the Cures going to check it out, followed by the transformation. Scenes 6 through 8 are usually the fight scenes and awakening powers, depending on if it's the early part of the season or not. And then parts 9 and 10 are the ending to the episode, usually with a villain scene included, sometimes without. It depends on what the story brings in that episode. And if you want to, you can even add character arcs or arcs over certain episodes so you can follow a certain sort of quest or story. It's entirely up to you what the arc's going to be about, but take my advice as you will. You can add it if you want to. Conclusion. And I do believe that is everything. Thank you guys for watching this special guide video, and I hope it will give you some insight on if you want to make your own Gacha Magical Girl series in the future. But until next time, this is JK2, signing out.
Peace.